Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. Buckle up, because this week we are in for a real treat. Today we have Brett Young, CEO of Erb Young, a very impressive insurance business with a main office located in Orlando, Florida. Mr. Brett Young, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brad. Good morning.
Hey, man, appreciate you being here. We've been around each other a little bit. I always love what you have to say. Usually come away inspired. So I'm guessing today will be no different. So for those that don't know you, why don't you give us just a real abbreviated version of Erb Young, where you guys got started, how you scaled so quickly, and kind of maybe if you could, the vision of where Erb Young is headed.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. Well, humble to be on, Brad. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate that. So hopefully we'll share some things that'll be valuable. I think this is such a cool platform where we get an opportunity to just talk about this stuff from agents to agents, man. You know, we all learn from each other's stories, and everybody does it a little different, and so we get to pull from different pieces. And so that's one of my favorite. That's just like one of my favorite things to do is just kind of kick it and see what's working for people, what's not working for people, and and what's working for others. So, yeah, man, my background. So real quick, let me start. Erb Young is about, I don't know, we're almost 50 employees now at this point. You say how we scale so quick. I don't feel like we scaled that quick. We're 13 years in. So it's an overnight success. Nobody knew who we were probably till 10 years in. But now I think we're making a little bit of some noise. It's funny how that works. It's the bending hockey stick. If you do this right, if you do scale right, it's like the last 3 years for us have been insane. I mean, it's like, we've doubled. It seems like we've doubled every 2 years or maybe 2.5 years. So it's like those last couple sequences have been big. So if you do it right, and if you do systems and process where, it works with one policy and it can work with 10,000 policies, you can get that bending curve, which hopefully maybe we'll talk about today, which would be great. I think we've done that. We've done that pretty well. But my background was in network marketing. I came from network marketing. I came from team building. Did it at a high level for 5 years. Grew an organization all over the country. Got to meet some of the best people in the business that did that. And there's a lot of misconceptions in the network marketing space in regards to just your friends, families, and neighbors. And the reality is I got a chance to look at it from a business perspective at a really high level. And I learned leadership and leading a voluntary army and what it takes to understand what leverage is, and doing something with beginning, the end in mind, and duplication, and keeping things simple so everybody can do them. And a lot of different things that are the components of what have built Erb Young today. And so we took those same concepts and we injected it into a traditional agency model. And it was like, man, you take leadership of leading hundreds of people that are voluntarily doing something on their part-time spare time, and you inject the ability to take those principles into somebody that's being paid a full-time salary and paid to show up and have a career path and all this stuff. And it just was a really fun experience to see how that just took off, because it felt easier, honestly. But today we're pushing right at 60 million in premium, total written premium. We've got 8 offices across the state. We're about to open up Charlotte, North Carolina. We're about to open up Georgia. So doing some things that are outside of our comfort zone as far as expansion and growth, and waking up every day and doing something that you don't know how to do, which is really fun. But that's the entrepreneurship game. So, my partners and I have 2 partners. I love them dearly. One is my little brother. The other one is my older brother from another mother. We're not related, but we've worked together for almost 20 years now. I worked with him in my previous life, the previous business that we were at. And man, we just set out to build something that was different, that took the same culture and connectivity that we found in the network marketing space, a path to unlimited, giving people opportunity, a chance to change their lives. And we took that and we put it into the insurance space, which in my opinion is the best business on the planet. It's the best SaaS model that's been here for a very, very long time, in an industry, in a business that's just starved for young talent. The median age in our agency is probably 30s, like 32. We've got a lot of young 20s, which I think is very different in this business. And that has been one of the ingredients that's helped us grow, is to just really attract quality talent, develop that talent, and give them an opportunity and a platform to grow and have fun along the way. So I hope that gives you kind of the elevator pitch, if you will, to
Yeah.
give context to the listener.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just to, lay the groundwork a little bit, you guys didn't start with this. You didn't buy out a large agency. I've heard you talk before about how you started, the three of you, basically all in one room, in an attic, and, put policy on by policy on. So you've earned this. Um, Talk a little bit about your intention to scale, because in my view, you're a business that is truly scaling. It's intentional, it's strategic. You are adding people to the Erb Young brand. So talk about what your aggressive growth looks like. And I know you've mentioned before, which I am really curious about, initially to bring people in, you're looking at quantity over quality, which I'm really intrigued by, because when I hear that, it scares the hell out of me. Only because any agency owner or business owner that has dealt with problems doesn't want to deal with problems. So when I hear quantity, it's just bringing anything on. I'm sure that's not the case, but yeah, talk about the scaling strategy, if you would.
Yeah. So again, I learned that, and I say but I mean, my partners and I have been here the whole time. So, we learned that, that it, here's the kind of the filter. So a lot of what we learned is philosophy. So how to think. Everybody wants to know how to do it. They listen to podcasts, they listen to these different things. They say, man, if I could pick up a tip on how to do something, then I can go and I'll implement it in my agency of how to do it. And the reality is that's just not true. You know how to eat healthy, but a lot of us don't do that, right? Like there's just these things in life that they're a lot based, they're more simple than we think they are. But the problem is we don't think correctly and we're not conditioned to think properly. And so our lens in which we look at things gets fuzzy and gets distorted because we're not focused on how to think. We're focused on how to do. And so we focus on how to think. And the mentors that I worked with just drilled it into our head over and over and over again. One of those philosophies is begin with the end in mind, right? So everything that you do and everything that we did early on, we always looked at it from a place of, is this going to work when we have 100 employees? And if the answer is no, that doesn't mean we didn't do it, but it was like, okay, well, then this is to only get to this point because we've got to think about this. This isn't sustainable. So I think that's first and foremost is just knowing like, hey, what is the vision? And then asking yourself the question of like, are we doing something that is sustainable based upon where we're trying to get to? Or are we just trying to move the needle at any means possible? Another philosophy and a way of thinking that was taught to us that we still embody today is don't do what works, do what duplicates. A lot of times agents do what works. Hey, I got the deal done. Hey, I got the business. Hey, the lead came in. Hey, this is how the business, I'm writing business. It's like, yeah, but you're not going to be able to teach 5 people how to do that. That's very centric around you. That's not a system, right? So like it's working for you, but is it going to duplicate beyond your means, beyond your personal touch? And a lot of times the answer is no to that. So I think first and foremost, we just always had the philosophy and the thinking of like, okay, are we building a business? Are we building a book of business? Are we building something that can move away from us? Or are we building something that has to be strangled by us? And so that just forces you to ask a lot of questions and really look at it from a business perspective instead of necessarily looking at it as a producer's perspective, which I think a lot of us are guilty, and sometimes we get stuck in that. And then the other thing is I had 2 partners, and when you have to logically justify why you're doing something to other people, you have to think more clearly. You have to be intelligent. It's designed. There's just embedded intelligence and accountability because you can't just make a decision because you feel like it that day. It has to have logical, sound reason that, hey, we said we want this and we're making these decisions. We'll do that. Are they in alignment with what we said we're going to do? And so that type of baked in accountability and consistency of staying on the track, I think has helped us really do well with that. And, the other part of that is just like, you got to be willing to have it be messy, whenever you're going to delegate, anything to somebody who is not as seasoned as you, they're just not going to be able to do it as well. And this is not new information, but what I find is that most people are not willing to be bad. And for us and for me, I was just always willing for it to be bad, because it was always about the bigger picture than it was about the, individual client experience. And that's not popular, but the reality is, like, it happens all the time. Sometimes you have to be a professional apologizer when you've got 3 new people handling accounts, and you have to step in and apologize for it didn't go great. And those are learning opportunities. But what's more important, them making mistakes or not doing it the way that you would want to do it and using it as an opportunity for development so they can grow, or no problems at all and it all runs smooth, but they don't learn. And so we were just always focused on everything is a development game. Everything is a container to make mistakes. And the other thing is too, is like, I learned this from on the captive side. I have a cousin who's very successful. He worked for one of the largest Allstate offices in the country, and he'd come to him with problems. And he'd go, man, I got a big problem. And he would look at him and say, the principal, and he'd say, did someone's house burn down without coverage? And he goes, well, no. He goes, okay, well, then it's not a big problem. And it was like such a good reframe of perspective. It's like, we think these problems, like, and we're in the insurance business, so we freak out because it's a high intensity, high risk, high trust situation. But most of the problems that we face and we deal with, they're just business problems, right?
Yeah.
Just business problems, and they're normal. So normalizing yourself to like allowing it to be messy, I think is very difficult for most, because we're just conditioned to not have these things go wrong, and it's just part of the process.
Yeah, there's no chance it's going to be perfect. There's no chance.
And I'd argue it's going to be bad. Like, you talk about quality. Let me explain quantity over quality.
Yeah.
In order for you to scale anything, you need volume.
Yep.
Right. Let's talk personal lines for a second. Personal lines in small business specifically. I have had this debate with so many agents, and they say, it's about loss ratio. It's about quality. If you want to be small, that's okay. If you want to grow and you want to scale and you want to truly get this to move past you, you have to figure out how to get volume. Then once you get too much, this is the same if you're a producer. This is the same if you're teaching a brand new producer and they're going to go build a book of business, or you're teaching somebody to build a big agency. The volume is so much more difficult than the quality. A lot of producers and a lot of principals, they just have a hard time getting volume. That's why the PE firms, that's why all these acquisitions are happening. The M&As, like, they will buy or overvalue books of business that are bigger, because that's more difficult for them to do. For me to narrow that down and get quality and chisel and get profitability, you can do that from a desk in New York. It's not a high level tough skill. What is difficult is getting a lot of volume to come in. And when you have cracked that code, then you can sort. You go, okay, I have too many opportunities. I have too much business. Now let me narrow it down. Now let me sort. But a lot of people are sorting before they've earned the right to, right? Like, go wide, blow it out, overwhelm yourself, get somebody in place that can help you. It'll be messy. It'll be bad. They'll get better, and then sort it down, narrow it down, and then decide, hey, you know what? This isn't a great fit for us. Let's go ahead and remove this. And then you're going to go do the process again and go wide again and fill the bucket again, sort it down, use as an opportunity to teach somebody. And that process is rinse, repeat over and over and over again. And so, like retention, a lot of times agents will fight me on retention, that they think retention is the most important thing. And I 100% disagree with that. You got in the insurance business because it's sticky already. You can be bad and you're still going to have retention. Like, you didn't get into the insurance business. That's why we got there. We got in the insurance business because people don't want to move insurance. So innately, regardless of how good you are going to have clients stay with you, not because you're great, but because of the business itself.
Yeah.
And so if we take the delta of what it is to be great at retention versus average at retention, when you're smaller, it's an insignificant number. And when you get larger, it becomes an actual real number, right? Because that spread gets bigger. But we spend so much time trying to optimize and tweak and get better at things when we shouldn't. We should be worried about volume. Then let me get a pie that's actually big enough to make it worth it. Then I will spend the time and we'll optimize. Then we'll tinker with it. Then we'll make it better. A lot of agents even in our system and operators that we've had to teach and really get clear with, it's like you're trying to make something better when you haven't passed the first, second, third stage yet. You've got to build it big enough to where when you actually crank the screw and make it tighter and make it better, it actually gives you yield. We're spending our time trying to processes, technology, especially new tech, all this stuff, and it's not going to give us this massive lift. What's going to give us massive lift is going out and getting more opportunities. And then when we get more opportunities, that innately will drive team building. And that's what builds a big agency, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love what you said, which is so true about many of us are trying to build a book of business and not a business.
Sure. We're focused on the insurance part. And the reality is there's a lot of operators, there's a lot of great owners out there that they don't even know how to write a policy. It's like, do you want to be in the game of building an agency, or do you want to be in the business of writing deals? And, you got to write deals first, but you got to figure out how do I make that transition, and maybe I'm full-time writing business, and then I'm half-time writing business, and then I'm writing business just a little bit, and then I'm completely out of it. But there's got to be this transition to where you're able to get out of the mess and start focusing on the higher level stuff, which in my opinion, there's just one level high. There's just one primary thing with high level stuff, and that's recruiting and developing talent.
Yeah.
We are in a business of a person to a person, at least now. The AI may change this, and that's all, up for debate. But right now it takes a person to a person. We call it body to body. There's a phone call, there's a person on the line. It takes a transaction. You cannot have a significant amount of transactions without having a lot of people handling those transactions. So that is the primary indicator on if someone is going to be able to scale, because you just run out of bandwidth. And we spend so much time on the other stuff and so little time on the recruiting aspect. Like, what's the top of the funnel lead gen for your recruiting? How do you develop that talent when they come in? What is your retention strategy to make sure that they're happy, fulfilled, and they have a career path? These are intelligent conversations and questions that we have to ask ourselves as principals. And if we can't answer them, then at the end of the day, someone's going to come and they're going to go, because everybody's asking this primary question. Doesn't matter if it's the insurance business, doesn't matter if it's with anything. What's in it for me? Yeah. What is in it for me? And if we can answer that question inside of our business, then we have a generator of people. We can magnetically draw people to our opportunity, because at the end of the day, it's best for them. They don't want to build our business. They want to build their career.
Right. Right. Let's touch on that a little bit, because a large part of your organization is personal development. So let's say that you are recruiting somebody to open an office in Charlotte or, Atlanta, wherever. What are things, how do you vet this new person to see if they're a fit for their culture? What traits do you look for to bring them in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So culture first for us. Are they going to play well with others? That's number one. So do they get along? Are they pleasant? Are they congenial? Do they smile? Do they make you feel good after an interaction? These things are overlooked. They're so basic and they're so elementary, but nobody teaches on them. Like that is number one thing. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, you're just going to struggle in any business, and specifically with us, because we're a team building, culture centric organization. So it's just, you're going to be a friction point. So that's number one. Number two, are you coachable?
Yeah.
Are you willing, and do you have a strong desire to get feedback and a will to win? And do you have a desire for more? And then three is competency. And and I don't even think this is just for an operator to open an office for us, Brad. I think this is just in general for every position. Now I think there's levels. So if we're going to have somebody that's going to open an office, there's got to be a higher level of competency there, And so let me give you an example. Like, so if we're hiring somebody that's, let's say CSR, the competency is going to be, how good are you on the phone? Or do you have, what do you have the ability to use the technology? Are you, have you never used a computer? That wouldn't be very highly competent, right? Like these would be basic skills for what we're looking for character traits. But on an operator perspective, the biggest one for me is, can you build a team? Can you build a team? Do you have the ability to get people to follow you?
Yeah.
If the answer is no to that question, they can't open an office, because the insurance part is easy comparatively to the people part. And that's where, to me personally, that's where all the big money is made, is in the ability to attract people, get people to follow you, and to be able to develop and pour into people. So like, if those skills don't exist, or at least the foundation exists where you can teach them that, then they're just probably not going to be a good fit for us for an office.
Do you do any type of DISC assessment or personality evaluation to find some of these traits, or you just go off a feel?
Yes, we don't. DISC is tough, man, because I have seen team builders in every category.
Yeah.
I don't think they are finding more people like Brett, right? Expressive driver. There's just these certain traits that I don't believe are indicative to you being a team builder. I think you could be an analytical type of person and you could still be a team builder, right? Like I think you could be an introvert and be a team builder, right? Leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. So the problem with the DISC is it kind of gives you an idea of their personality type, but I don't think it's intuitive to whether someone's going to be able to take relentless action, have high character and integrity, and inspire other people to do the same thing. I don't think that's a personality trait. So no, we don't do that. We ask questions. We're looking for reactions. We're looking for how they interact. We're looking for how they make people feel. We're looking for, are they interested in other people? Are they talking about themselves the whole time? Do they ask questions? Are they engaged? Are they interested? So these more of like social skills that are a little bit more embedded into you getting to know somebody are more how we do it. So like to open an office for us, there's some specific benchmarks. Like we're not just finding somebody and saying, oh, great, we have an opportunity to open an office, right? A lot of the offices that we open, these individuals have worked with us for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? So they're some of our best, most talented, groomed people that have gone out and opened up their own Erb Young office. So we know what we're getting, right? And we've worked together. They know our systems, our processes. They understand the culture, right? We're in a leadership position. So that is the ideal situation for us, because, they've had an opportunity to come in and learn it from the bottom, if you will, and they've ascended all the way to the top of the food chain, to where now they know the highest level skill set inside of our ecosystem, which is recruiting, retaining, and developing talent.
Something that I think is so unique to Erb Young is the personal development piece, and because I don't think I have heard anyone else. Maybe Billy Wagner does, some of that, but it's such a part of your culture. It is. I mean, it's a part of what you do. It's basically on your calendar of, look, we have a book club, or a weekly book. I don't think there's a lot of people that are really into personal development, or they're not acting on it.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Cool. You know that, by the way. That's really cool that you thank you.
Complete. Oh yeah. Yeah. So how is that received from people? They go into a job they think is an insurance interview, and we start asking about, what books do you read?
Yeah.
How do you, how are you getting yourself better? And because that's what we do. That's teaching people how to think. I'm sure there's some that are like, look, I just want to sit on my book and I just want to sell insurance. That's not a good fit for Erb Young.
There have been, I'm laughing because there's been so many situations where, look, we're a little weird. I mean, we're a little weird. And if you come into the organization, you might look around and go, man, what is going on here? Like, why is everybody so excited about reading? Like, why is everybody so excited? And so there have been some people that just go,
Yeah.
I don't know about this. This is odd. You guys are really gung ho about this stuff. Like I've never read a book in 10 years. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And look, you got to meet people where they are, right? Like, and then slowly bring them to where you are. And so, but for us, that's what changed my life. And that's and these guys would tell you the same thing. It's like, I was going down a wrong path and somebody handed me a book, and that book changed my life. It opened up the doorway to like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't know any of this, but yet there are patterns in my life where I've seen little breadcrumbs along the way. And I just became starved for that information. And it helped groom me to change paths. And so it made a dramatic, everything that personally I currently have that we sit right now is a result of personal development. So with 100% certainty, I know what it can do for somebody in their life. And this is what was taught to me, but also I've seen it play out. But the biggest component of why it's so important in our organization is because the business changes all the time. There are variables that we're trying to train and teach on, and they're different 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 months from now. And we see leaders they chase their tail on trying to teach some of these things that are not transferable to different seasons within the business. And so we have to retrain and retrain and retrain and retrain. And it's like situational awareness and problem solving are macro skills that apply in any industry, in any season, with all people, but we don't teach that. And so I would rather, as a leader, spend all my time teaching critical thinking, proper philosophy, how to think, situational awareness, emotional EQ, leadership, communication, all these things that never change. And then lean on the team to make the decisions. Then lean on the team to have the frontline decisions to be able to make the calls on this stuff, instead of trying to sit in an ivory tower and try to map it all out on a whiteboard and make sure we make all the right 100 decisions that we need to make in the perfect sequence that we need to make them in with all the variables. It's just near impossible. It just doesn't work. So, but if we can build character qualities and philosophy and proper thinking and value systems and hierarchy of needs of what's important, and if everybody's bought into that, then the team is able to make those situational decisions. They're able to go on offense. They're able to make those calls. And so you're teaching people to fish instead of just giving them something to eat. And so it's just, not only it's good personally because people will change their lives and they'll feel more confident, they'll feel more self-aware, they feel more satisfied at home, they're getting more than what they're being compensated for. These are skills that they can take with them even if they don't stay with the agency. It's truly different. It's a differentiator, but also just from a business perspective, it's smart business. Yeah. Because now you have an army of people who are equipped to help you solve problems instead of you solving the problem and just asking everybody to execute on what you've asked them to do. And that's exhausting. Like, I don't want to be the guy that has to make all the decisions and know all the answers because I just don't have it. We don't have it. So if the personal development is like, hey, let me show you the door and then you can walk through it. And once you walk through it, play, have fun. My job is just to make sure you know that there's a door there and you know how to open it.
Part of that development, and specifically in the insurance business, we have to problem solve almost every day. We have to have the ability to adapt.
Yes.
And so that is huge in this business. I also think that what you're doing on the development side of things is a recruiting tool. I mean, when you start talking about that in an interview, that is different. Most all of us want to be better people. Whether we're making an effort to be one or not is another story. Many do not. But here you're entering an environment where we are going to push you to help yourself, to develop yourself, to be in a culture where this is part of the fabric of we're going to be better and grow together. I think that's pretty powerful.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I wish we could say it was like this well-designed, like, oh, this is gonna be great for recruiting. Look, man, it just worked for us.
Yeah, right.
It just worked for us. And it was just the three of us. And we were reading and doing these books and doing all these things because we just needed it. We were in the trenches taking grenades every day. It's like, hey man, I got to train this thing because we won't be able to get to the next level. And then it works. And then you go, you work with somebody and you care about them and you say, hey, look, if you really want to be successful, read 10 pages of a good book a day, pick something. Well, what do I read? I don't know what to read. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the one book's not going to make the difference.
Right.
Because you're going to read 10, 12 books a year and you're going to do it over 5 years and you're going to wake up and you're going to be a different human. But you can't do that with one book. So it doesn't matter. Just get started. It's not the reading of the book. It's the activity of reading multiple books over a period of a long time that will change your life. And so it is a recruiting tool because the mantra in here is we're training people how to be great human beings, not just good insurance agents. If you're a great insurance agent, great. You're going to make more money. Okay. You're going to make more money. Fantastic. Excited for you. Pumped, rah, rah, cheerleader. Great. But what fires us up more than anything is to see somebody come in from here as a baby. And all of a sudden now they start to get these development characteristics and they're having conversations about, they read Think and Grow Rich and they read The Slight Edge and they're now going to the gym and they're now changing their eating habits and they're scheduling date nights with their wives because they're now making it a priority. Like they just start thinking differently. And you're like, dude, this is the fulfilling, like this is the juice. You may leave Erb Young. It may not work out. Who knows? Maybe you got a better opportunity somewhere else and just whatever. It doesn't matter. But what I can promise and guarantee back to the recruiting thing is like when you come here, you will leave a better human being. Yeah. Just because you're going to be forced to, because if you don't, you won't make it because it's just what we do. And if you don't want to engage in that, well, you'll find out real quick and we'll find out real quick that this just isn't the right place for you. So I think that is a cool value prop. Yeah. I think it kind of organically came into that. And, I think it's a form of compensation.
For sure. And it's sticky in terms of keeping people. There's a positivity to it. I feel good about myself. I love it. So kudos to you guys on that for building and keeping that. Let's talk tactically a little bit on how you're scaling. I feel like every time I hear from you, you've added an office. I swear. Like 2 months ago, it was 6 offices. Now it's up to 8, and closing in on 10. Fantastic. So talk a little bit about how you're helping these operators, these partners, grow, and kind of there's an expectation, right? You're not looking for the insurance agent to come in and nest on their book and to sit and earn there. So talk about, I know like your LinkedIn profile says how we help break the $1 million in revenue plateau. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, so it took a while to figure this out, but this has worked really, really well. And stole this from Jocko. Great philosophy, good thinking, but centralized messaging, decentralized execution. It's just allows you to move way faster. A lot of us want centralized messaging and centralized execution, and it just doesn't work from a scalability perspective. Let me caveat. I have not seen that work for us. It just slows you down a lot. So if you're pouring into people, you're looking to develop them, well, then release control, right? So what we've done is we have a centralized messaging, centralized training, centralized process, centralized systems, centralized branding, centralized how we want the business to look, feel, and operate. But then when it comes to the front lines of getting after it, that execution is delegated and decentralized. So you're looking for specific people, key people that embody these characteristics. Back to our conversation previously in this conversation. And once you have those, it's about just giving outcomes and charging them with results and then getting out of the way. So for us, it's worked really well. And I specifically say that because our process to break through the $1 million plateau is 100% rooted in team building. I say it over and over and over again, but everything that we do is based upon how do we find more awesome humans and how do we make the humans that we have better? And if we can do that, then we're going to scale. And so the next part of that is how do we teach our team leaders to do the same thing. And so I don't work with everybody. I can't work with everybody. My partners don't work with everybody. They can't work with everybody. So we work with a core group of people. We've had, we've called our core leadership team, and people that embody the characteristics and the principles that we believe in over a long period of time become inducted into what we call core. And when they're part of core, they get a one-on-one time, and they get higher level leadership training. They get more development. They're just ingrained into the fabric of what it is to be a team builder. And that's where Taylor, Rod, and I spend our time, is teaching those leaders how to be leaders. And so by focusing on teaching our leaders how to be leaders, then in turn, they're duplicating that. And that comes back to the don't do what works, do what duplicates. Because what we're teaching them is they need to go find their core leaders, right? They need to find 5 people that embody the principles that we're talking about and work with those people. You can only work with so many people.
Yeah.
And as this grows and as this expands, we won't be able to work with all those leaders. It'll be decentralized more. And so that process of rinse and repeat, of realizing like who's on your team. Like we have 50 people, but I have 5 people on my team. There's 5 people. I work with 5 people. And I'm teaching those 5 people to do the same thing. And that is a duplicatable model. And it has to do with, okay, we believe the same things. We think the same things. We have the same same direction. This is how we're going to do it. But when it comes to actually doing it, each of us are in our own markets, making sure that we execute that. And we're giving people free reign to do it in their style, in their way. You're not micromanaging them. You just, so that's a long way of saying centralized messaging, centralized systems with decentralized execution. And then also making sure that you're not spread too thin. You can only work, you want to find the leaders that you want to pour into. I had a conversation last night. It says that not everybody is a racehorse. You have a lot of workhorses. Knowing who your racehorses are and who your workhorses is. You need both, but understanding who is the person that wants to go to the next level, that's willing to put in the work, that's where you spend your time. Not trying to convince the person that doesn't want to do that on why it's in their best interest to do it, right? That just comes down to quantity first in people. I need quantity in people, and then I'm sorting on who the people I want to work with, and then I'm focusing on quality. So there's no difference between production for insurance policies and recruiting and developing humans. It's the same process for us.
Yeah. Which brings me something I was curious about. When did Brett Young wake up and say, you've been developing yourself for a long time. I need to start passing some of this on. I'm ready to start. I think I have the ability to develop other people and teach some of these philosophies. Where did that come from?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I think it came from the beginning, because somebody did it for me. And it made such a profound impact in my life that I was like, man, I would love to be able to be the guy that makes that type of impact on somebody else, So, Jim Rohn says it best, his mission in life is for his name to show up in somebody's testimonial. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I think I share that to some extent is, my juice out of this life is inspiring people that don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they're good enough. They don't feel like they have a path, because I felt like that. And so I think my development came from, I want to get, to the point where I'm doing better. But man, I really wanted to be able to be in a position where I could do the same for other people, because I just thought that would be the coolest thing ever. So for me, beginning with the end in mind, probably the second book that I read, I thought to myself, man, how do I learn this stuff so I can teach it one day? And I think you look at things with that filter, you just study it different than if you're just reading it to get information.
Yeah. Right.
So you're consuming and you're learning and you're just so much more engaged in the process because you want to be able to pass that on. And I think that was a big help for me. Just because I just genuinely wanted to learn it. I genuinely wanted to be able to teach it. And I genuinely wanted to make an impact in other people, because I just thought that's I just feel like that's the highest calling in life. And someone said, well, yeah, that's really selfless. I don't think it's selfless. I think it's selfish. I mean, I think for me, it's just, I get a high and a feeling of a level of importance and significance from being able to do that for somebody. So, and I just love it. And I love it. So it was always that way for me. Once I started on this path, is to say, man, that for the dream would be able to someday be able to do what somebody just did for me.
Yeah. It's powerful. I mean, I love that you're able to do kind of intertwine these things. There'd be one piece you could run a business, but be able to do this with making an impact with your people is I think that's special. So
yeah, I mean that's just another layer of scale, right? Like you want a little bit from a lot, and a lot of us are trying to get a lot from a little. We're squeezing and we're trying to get as much out of it as we possibly can. If you want to scale, if you want to grow a big business, if you want to grow a big agency, you want a little from a lot. You have to take less and then grow more. And that's how it works. And it's unbelievable. If you can get that right, once the ball starts rolling that way, you're like, oh, wow, this is why. Because the numbers just get absurd. And you're like, oh my gosh, I was so concerned with making sure I get this type of yield. And it's like, no. Like your yields are off. As small agency owners, our yields are way off. They're disproportionately unrealistic. Like when we first started, your owner benefit is way through the roof, right? It's so high and it's not real. If you want to build a bigger agency, your yield is going to be smaller, but your lifestyle is better. Your impact is better. You have leverage, you have time freedom, it's more fun. Like there's just, for me personally, I'm just saying my perspective. This is how I think, but you have to be willing to have lower yields for higher amounts of volume. And you just can't grip it. You can't squeeze it. You have to release, you have to surrender and say, we're looking in this as 3-year cycles, not annual returns, right? Like my P&L is not an indication. My annual P&L is not an indication of where I'm going. My annual P&L is just a benchmark of where I am today, but I'm looking in things in cycles. Last thing I want to give you, Brad, that I think is very helpful, that has been huge for us, is we do everything in 3-year cycles, and we do it off of infrastructure, cash on hand, and owner benefit. And so if you're growing a business and you're growing an agency, I would highly encourage you to look at things in 3-year cycles. And so we'll grow infrastructure where we spend, and we're putting time in just building people, infrastructure, technology, systems, processes. We're just spending. Usually our margins, we'll grow top line, but our profit stays the same. So we squeeze yields. Then the next year we'll have more top line. Now we'd stop spending and you get more cash on hand. So you fatten to make sure the company's stable. And then the third year, now you can take more comp. Yeah. So every 3 years we go, okay, now it's time to look and say, are there dividends that we can take from this as a business owner? A lot of times we watch, even in our system, operators, they want to take raises every single year because revenue went up every year, right? And so it's easy in our business. And what happens is if the money that we have is the weapons and the tools that we use to deploy out in the marketplace and bring more back to us, what you're doing is you're just crushing your ability to be able to go on offense, and you have these golden handcuffs that you put on yourself. So that 3-year cycle has been huge. We teach our operators that, and it's mind blowing because I think a lot of times we treat an operating account like our secondary checking account sometimes as operators, and that's a big mistake.
Something you've talked about before. It's definitely not new, but you're adding on an operator, or when you're growing your own business, and I think this is good for people that are early into their career. What's that bottom line that you need to take home? And you stick to that. And I think your 3-year cycle is perfect for this. That it really shouldn't change for 3 years.
It's hard.
If I decide I need to take home 25 grand, 30, whatever that number is, stick to that, because your goal is to grow the business.
That's the other thing. It's like, hey, why did you get in this business? Don't lose sight of why you got in this business. It's like, if you're starting an agency, more than likely it's because you wanted to grow a business. And so because you're going to make more money, you can go get a producer job somewhere and make a lot more money in the beginning. Yeah. Like, so let's not try to have our cake and eat it too. Like, you're in this business for other reasons than just short-term monetary benefit. So, but when it gets thick and it gets sticky and it gets tough, things get tight at home, you got to remember that. That's why I think having partners is so good for us, because we just didn't have the option. I couldn't just go into the account and give myself a monthly distribution because I decided we had extra money in there. Like I had to justify that to two other partners and they would have to justify it to me. So, I mean, what would you do if you had a board of directors that you had to be accountable for?
Yeah.
And that would change a lot of behaviors in most agencies. So, and it's not just about discipline. It's just that you're just going to have a really hard time doing it any other way. You can buy agencies. That's a good way to do it. But then you've got to use a ton of leverage. And even if you're using a lot of leverage, like we bought 5 agencies, I mean, it's not the majority of our business. Most of it's organic, but even in that sense, the banks want to see organic growth, right? Like in order to continue to do that, they want to see that you're being good stewards of it. And organic growth is how you get wealthy in this business. No questions about it. There's PEs and there's M&As and they do it way better than you do it. The hard part is organic traffic, converting that organic traffic and retaining that organic traffic. And if you're in that game, that is there's a lot more fruit in that game than the other one. But that's why there's more fruit, because it's more difficult. So you just, if you continue to take more money every year, you're just slowly bleeding away. It's like having half a sword going into battle the next year. It's like you can get it done. It's just that it's going to be more difficult.
Yeah. Last topic I want to jump on before we let you go. You mentioned when, what career path you wanted to choose. Your dad gave you good advice of figure out what you want your day to look like. So what is the typical day look like for Brett Young?
Oh man, that's cool. Well, shout out to my pops, like that was such a good piece of advice. He's given me so much. He's a wise man. Appreciate him so much. He's just been an inspiration in my life, but in my brother's life. But yeah, so the typical day for me is I'm usually up 6:30. I'm usually in a workout. That's a big part of my life. I think moving the body is so important, especially in the game of business. And I do think this is a game. This is our sport. Yeah. So my day starts with a workout. I usually come home. I'll take my kids to school on a golf cart, which is really cool. The elementary school's right down the street. I take my son. And then I'm in the office, around 9:30. I'll shoot content, podcasts in the morning, say hi to the team. Usually have a leadership meeting, whether it's a leadership meeting or whether it's a departmental meeting, and then I have lunch. I'm doing special projects after that, between 1 and 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then I'm out. And then I'm out for the day. So there are days that I stay late. I used to do it all the time back in my younger days. I've slept on the floor multiple times, but I don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
I'm past that. So I try to have a little bit more space to enjoy some of the fruits with the family at this stage of my life. So I'm proud of that. It's like, I think it's easy to get caught up in working too much. There's a time to grind, and there's a time to understand kind of how to have that, how to have that space to make sure the family doesn't get it. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you're young in this game, that the family doesn't always get the attention that maybe you will later on in life. And so I feel like at that point right now, I'm living the life that my younger self wanted to live when they looked at the insurance business, right? You can't get that right when you get in the business. It doesn't work that way. What does your typical day look like? Well, when you start, you're not going to get that immediately. But I feel like right now, I'm living that typical day that I wanted 13 years ago when I decided to get in the insurance business, which is cool.
Yeah, good for you. And it doesn't just happen overnight, right? And just real quick, I like that you use the term messy for those that are early in or trying to grow. It's going to be messy. It's
messy right now. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There are more problems within our business. There's just so many problems that you just never dealt with. I mean, every day we're dealing with stuff that's I just never dealt with it before. So it's like, it's so messy.
Yeah.
But to your point, Brad, like as long as you know that that's normal, it at least makes you feel good and go, oh, okay, it's supposed to be this way. Where we get caught up is like, man, this can't be where it is. I must be doing something wrong. Like, wow, there's a problem. Like, am I going to make it? Am I good enough? And it's like, welcome to the business. That's the game. You just stepped on the floor with 20,000 fans screaming at you and they handed you a basketball and there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock. Like, it's just that's the nature of the beast. Pressure is a privilege and it doesn't go away. You get normalized to the problems, and you can determine the size of someone's paycheck by the size of the problems that they're able to solve. That's another way to think. That's how to think. So thank God I have problems. Thank God I have problems. If I didn't have problems, then we're not doing anything. If we have no problems, we have no business. So it's like continually to make sure that you reframe that, especially, I'm telling you, it just doesn't go away. It is messy. It's always messy.
Yeah.
If you're growing, it's messy.
Yeah. No other way around it. Yeah. Good stuff today, man. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy. Appreciate the time. Appreciate all the value you provided. Really happy that we connected. Looking forward to staying connected.
Me too.
Everyone
I'm
else,
super humbled. Thank you very much. I just want to tell you, just the exchanges that I've had with you offline and everything, you're first class. Just everything about what you're doing, man. I'm a fan. So I just, again, I very much appreciate you having me on the show.
Hey, before I let you go, if you like what Brett has to say, Brett, why don't you tell them a little bit about your podcast? It's a great podcast. It's a business podcast. It's a development podcast. Why don't you touch on that, and then how can people get in touch with you if they'd like to do so?
Sure, appreciate that. Yeah, so we run it's called the Be Extraordinary Podcast. It's business, leadership, and personal development. So we have different guest speakers and different guests from all different industries that are in the leadership game or in the business game and that believe in development, personal development, what their journey is, what their story is, what they've learned, what they're focused on. Higher the level, bigger the devil. What are those devils? So really exciting stuff. It's just a way for Rod Taylor and I to nerd out together and really focus on what we love to do, which is learn from other people and understand how to get to the next level in this game called business. But for me, the best way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm pretty active on both of those. If you look up Erb Young, you should be able to find me. But yeah, shoot me a message. Let's connect. Collaboration is so fun, and learning from each other is fun, and relationships are awesome, and that's what this game is about. So yeah, with anybody that's listening, I'd love to connect with you. It'd be great.
All right, man. You're the best. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. We'll see you next week.